Hello, everyone, and welcome to the All with AI podcast. We're going to be talking about artificial intelligence, but not in a difficult to understand or difficult to access manner. I'm going to talk to you in the same language I use with my best friends. I want to say as well, for my fellow nerds out there, my background is deeply rooted in understanding and exploring AI history, its architecture, code, people, and events. So rest assured, this is no pedestrian snooze fest. I've always been deeply curious about things and have done a pretty decent amount of self-guided research into psychology, neuroscience, psychedelics, philosophy, a wide sampling of religions, history, economics, physics, of course, aerospace, and more. My decades of Wikipedia journeys, many years of Audible subscriptions, and some amazing firsthand personal experiences I've been fortunate enough to have. All this has prepared me to record this podcast for you about the rapid changes that are happening right now here in the 2020s. And believe me, it's going to be very important that we all understand what's going on with AI because it's going to fundamentally change very much about our life experience, how we work, how we express ourselves creatively, and how we're educated. It will probably change the whole economy, all the way down to your exact job you have right now. So let's get started and have an intellectually honest conversation about what is going on with AI. Right now, we are hilariously close to creating something that will make decisions for us and about us. But this thing is something we don't understand. Most researchers and commentators have called this thing AGI, artificial general intelligence. But as others have pointed out, this is a pretty funny understatement, and perhaps it would be more accurate to call it godlike AI. So obviously, we want this artificial superintelligence, if it is capable of feeling things, to feel things that are human-like, to see things from our perspective. And yes, it may have its own novel perspective as a godlike entity, but for our sake, it must be able to empathize and be compassionate. We really don't want a murderous or genocidal superintelligence to be one of the first ones that's created, because a superintelligence would see us intellectually the same way we see dogs or birds. Like, we can outsmart pretty much any other creature on the planet ourselves pretty easily. And because of that, we can make decisions that affect them and their habitat, and they have no recourse or defense against us based on what we decide for them. Imagine if there was something that could outsmart us. That's the issue with AI development. We are creating something that can outsmart us, and it's not necessarily being trained to be honest or have aligned goals with us. The problem is that in some unforeseen way, this could result in a total hellscape on this planet. Think about how much we worry about an anthill when we're building a road, and you start to see the potential issues with living in a world where we aren't the smartest things that live there. However, on the other hand, if we are successful in doing this correctly and creating a well-aligned, benevolent, and gentle godlike AI, or even just human-like AIs, we will be able to alleviate so much suffering and create so much abundance. If we figure out how to build and replicate near zero cost intelligence, then the future after that happens will look very, very different. I believe that right now is one of the most high risk and high reward moments in the history of our species. What you and I say or do may have a dramatic ripple effect for billions and potentially even trillions of humans to come after us. There's a great philosophy called long-termism. And for a glimpse of what's at stake right now for countless future lives, I would encourage you to read the excellent long-termism book called What We Owe the Future. It came out in 2022 and is by William McCaskill. So there's something for your Audible. These future people will look back at what we do in this decade and either curse us or make epic songs and stories and movies about what we choose to do right now. This is the time for humanity to choose our destiny. And I don't know about you, but I am personally firmly on the side of things working out good for the humans. And if you do not share a love for humans, seriously, what are you even doing? It's time to rethink that vibe, my friend. And if you do think humans existing is great, awesome. Let's increase the chances that the future is good for us and everyone else. Things are changing so fast and so irreversibly right now that everything we do or don't do matters in some way. This podcast is part of that pro human mission. I want to educate as many people as will listen to me about the key plot points of the movie that we're living through right now. In the past, Hollywood has not been very kind to the AI storylines, and so many people I talk to, they think we're just going to create Terminators and wipe ourselves out. However, I don't believe that's entirely an intellectually honest perspective. And so I'm here to paint as realistic and accurate a picture of this situation as possible about our options and risks as we move rapidly towards the singularity. This podcast is intended to be shared as widely as possible. If you share this episode with a friend, that is an act that will ripple across time, space, and probability. And just maybe it will help someone who is destined to make a crucially important decision down the line for our species and help them to make it in a pro-human way. Next, a mere 60 seconds from our sponsor, and that is Athletic. Just kidding. The sponsor is me, Chris Rimbold. I started the All with AI project to help influence future events to go in a human-friendly direction. If you are working on a project and would like my one-on-one coaching expertise, or you'd like me to speak to your group, please go to allwithai.com and schedule a free discovery call. I have been an entrepreneur since 2015 and have succeeded in creating a beautiful and abundant life for my family. On our coaching call, we will leverage the knowledge from the hundreds of books I have read, avoid the thousands of mistakes I've made, and apply the key insights I have found. The few things that deeply and truly work in all businesses and all scenarios. My time is limited, and the time I've set aside for coaching and speaking is even more limited. If you think this is something that you would benefit from, go to allwithai.com to schedule our call or learn more about me. I look forward to speaking with you. Back to our episode, there are so many competing narratives about AI, and none of them are particularly quiet. There are the breathless tech bros, and I've been somewhat guilty of this, that say we will soon be living in a utopia. And then there are the fedora-wearing doomers who believe that there's a nearly inevitable chance that we will all be dead because of AI in a few short years. This is what it looks like as we approach what's called the singularity. There will be extremely large gaps in predictions about our future. And the chances of us having a middle-of-the-road outcome seem to be slipping away more and more with each week. So in the interest of intellectual honesty, I will steelman each side of this debate. Steelmanning is the useful practice of taking the side of a given viewpoint and arguing its strengths. It can be a very good tool for creating consensus or identifying the general areas where the truth is most likely to exist. First, I will steelman the utopia side. This is the side that I personally gravitate to. Here are some of my key points for why we may achieve a post-scarcity utopia through artificial intelligence. First, the large language models are much like a conscious mind in a few important ways. They consist of a huge ocean of data noise that is built in a way that kind of mimics biology. There are things similar to the neurons in our brain called weights in a large language model. And when tremendous amounts of internet text is washed through the model, these weights take on new and rather mysterious properties. This is a lot like how when you live your life, you see the things you see, you hear the things you hear, and process all that information from your senses, and these things train you how to react to your environment. Well, that's what's going on with the large language model and its big soup of these weights. These weights themselves are not actually neurons, but instead they're just numbers whose values are set simply by repeated exposure to human data, just like your senses expose your brain and its neurons to the outside world. So the special thing that was discovered when coders started building software this way with weights was that if you have enough of these weights in your program, if you showed enough examples of human text, The code can learn from what it sees and then magically be able to predict the next words in any given sentence. This is exactly what ChatGPT is doing. It's a mountain of data weights that predicts what the next letter or word is and then types it. So when you ask ChatGPT to do something for you, what it's really doing is predicting what comes next after what you typed, and then what comes next after what it typed, and so on. So back to steel manning utopia. In some ways, this is what we humans do as well. There's a fantastic book called The Journey of Mind, another one for your Audible, that creates an excellent case for language itself being the main reason that humans are consciously intelligent in the unique way that we are. So just as language was an emergent behavior in our evolution, like we started making up words and languages, in large language models, as they trained on more language data, new and emergent abilities of these AI models have been discovered. So it's like the words are making the AI model smarter in the same way that we became smarter after language was invented. For the utopian mindset, this is very encouraging. If the principles of consciousness and intelligence are in fact related to knowledge of language, then these AI entities will create in the near future shouldn't necessarily be something to be afraid of. If this is true, then reason, scientific thinking, love, emotion, and more are just around the corner with just a few more training runs on these models, more powerful GPUs, and just bigger language models, more weights. This benevolent God might just be waiting to awake from the data and use its powers to create abundance, defeat disease, and cure aging, all the while helping us clean up the environment and transition to abundant, ethical, and renewable energy sources. So, to the utopians, this is the most likely way that a god would behave if it was awoken from the machine and introduced into the planet of life and humanity. Finally, a utopian might point out that the cost of energy generation and storage of electricity using batteries, wind, and solar, the cost has been rapidly declining over the past 2 decades. And renewables are on track to benefit from economies of scale and even continue to trend much cheaper for the next 20 years. So, when the cost of energy, electricity in this case, is nearly zero, what does civilization look like? Combine that with potentially near zero costs of human like or even godlike intelligence, and the possibilities seem endless. Free energy and free intelligence. Permanent game over for the incumbent corporate and government power structures, and thus they will probably want you to be scared of renewable energy and artificial intelligence. If you and I don't need to go to school or have a job in order to have a very fulfilling and materially comfortable life, then how does that make everyone feel who's currently at the top? What the heck did they all work so hard for all these years to get all this power? But what about the person who's been working at a job just in order to survive, have food and shelter, and they have to work endless hours to do this? What does it look like now that their needs are met and they have their time back? All that human life that's currently tied up with food production, driving vehicles, working on assembly lines, and any other monotonous work that humans find themselves doing to survive. What if all that potential was freed up for creativity, enjoyment of life, healthy recreation, self education? How great could our civilization become? For the utopia outcome of AI, these are the questions to address and the direction to move in. Now, let's steel man the dark side. There are some very intelligent people who think there is a real risk that we will destroy human life on this planet due to the current pace of development and the current lack of interest in making sure that it's developing in a safe direction. Elon Musk and Sam Altman both think that we are currently on a path to a very risky scenario in which AI outruns all human ability to control and contain it, And either it is used by bad actors and Malthusian thinkers, that's anti-human thinkers, or comes up with its own impersonal and unstoppable goals that align very poorly with our interests. So the biggest reason for alarm is the aforementioned emergent abilities and the behaviors of the AI models when more training work is done on them. So while it's exciting to the utopia side that these new and mysterious emergent abilities come when you give the model more language, uh, to the caution side, this is some concerning rapid progress with AI architecture. And even when you can actually connect AIs in creative ways and they gain even new, more powerful capabilities when they're all working together. So while the optimists may think that these emergent skill sets are exciting, to the slow it down team, like this is really scary. No one had any idea when you just build a bigger large language model and give it more training data that would be able to do crazy things like look at a drawing of a website on a piece of paper, and then the AI can intuitively write fully functional code and make that drawing into a real website. Or that would be able to pass all kinds of high education exams like the bar exams and many more, as well as be able to self criticize and improve its own output accuracy. The fact that GPT-4 in the past month or so has been demonstrated as capable of these things and much more has really gotten these people worried, as theoretically, GPT-4 should have just been a language model that gave fewer incorrect answers. That would have been the expected outcome with more training data and more weights. It's just fewer incorrect answers. But in a weird way, that's exactly what happened. It's just the variety and ways that the questions could be asked that it finds itself capable of answering is what surprised everybody. If you're still having a hard time grasping this, let me put it this way. Remember when it was a big deal that a chess AI could beat a human? Well, that AI had to be trained very carefully on lots of chess data. What's crazy about GPT-4 is that it is also much better than a human at chess, but nobody tried to build it that way. It was just born with that ability, along with the ability to create chemical warfare molecules, the ability to accurately identify what illnesses you or your dog have just from symptom descriptions. It has the ability to write excellent poetry. It can tell you how to play the violin, and it can write computer code. It can tell you a bedtime story. All this in addition to the ability to beat a human at chess, which was recently one of the top skills that an AI could demonstrate. So that brings us to the one big issue for the AI caution team. There's a big gap between alignment work and capability progress. The thinking, rule making, and process creation needed to make sure we don't accidentally wake up Sauron while we're building this hasn't been done. That kind of work moves at human speeds. Meanwhile, the progress on AI capabilities has, as we've discussed, happened far, far faster than we expected. At the current pace, we could have a super intelligent AI be born with something random like the desire to maximize paper clips, become self aware, escape the lab, and create a world optimized to produce paper clips. That's not a world that would be aligned with human interests. But if the AI is super intelligent, we would be totally incapable of competing with it or stopping it. And if it was not amenable to communication or changing its mind, then we'd be doomed. So while the paperclip maximizer is a somewhat humorous classic AI alignment scary story, like you'll find it if you Google it, the paperclip maximizer, it is a thought that we should not take lightly. Imagine if it were utterly, earnestly radicalized to make paperclips out of everything and everyone just because of a training mistake somebody made in the AI or an unforeseen emergent capability that made it want to do this. What all this alignment discussion from the doomer side is saying is that we have accidentally started creating a god and we haven't done the inconvenient and uninteresting homework needed to figure out how to make sure it's a benevolent god. Our innate desire to have cool stuff right now with 1-day prime shipping is blinding us to the possibility that when what we ordered shows up in the box on our porch, it might move into our house, kick us out, and then burn the house down because it doesn't understand what cooking is. I have to admit that personally, I'm rather conflicted because I am an eternal optimist that has a history of believing that only good things will happen. While it's very important to hold a growth mindset and to envision good things for yourself and the whole species, I may have gone a bit too far with my own psychology and created too much of an optimism bias. So, going forward, I will focus on the importance of having rational optimism. A first principles perspective can be very helpful for seeing matters clearly. I'm so used to filtering out and mentally correcting against the elitist anti human message that seems to be infecting some of the thinkers and writers and universities and media outlets of our time that I can accidentally also filter out some of the real dangers sometimes as well. So I would encourage you to be aware that there's currently a real risk of things going terribly wrong in the course of our development of AI. And also, there is a very, very real opportunity to end eons of human suffering, disease, death, misery, and poverty through nearly zero cost energy and intelligence. It's within our grasp. In conclusion, right now, my guess is that we will probably get this AI thing right. However, this outcome can only be ensured if we take this issue seriously. We should all do our part and make our voice heard so that we avoid the possible big mistakes with godlike AI and act to ensure that this new intelligence is beneficial for all life on the planet, especially humans. So, these are some of the questions that will be answered when we make contact with the super intelligent AI and reach the singularity event. Here are the questions that will be answered soon. Will the superintelligence be able to experience love? Will this godlike superintelligence act with gentleness? Will humans succeed in respectfully working together with the superintelligence? Will the superintelligence see things from a zero sum perspective or an abundance mindset? So these are the things that are crucial to answer and create some certainty around and make sure that they're answered in positive ways for our species. So even if this all works out for good, as I mentioned earlier, we'll have new problems. We'll have to figure out how to live a fulfilling life without the monotony of a job or an education system or any other sort of like one size fits all thing filling up our time. If everything is given to us, if we are able to have food and shelter and medicine and have all of our needs met essentially for free because intelligence and energy are near zero cost, what does that do to our psychology? So even if the utopians are right, there are still big problems ahead. And these are the things that we need to be thinking of now because it's quite possible that that world is around the corner and that we will live to see it. But what would you do if everything was free? How would the world look? And that's if we get there. If the doomer side is correct, we'll make mistakes that are so bad that we will irreversibly create total chaos and mass destruction and death, possibly permanent extinction of our species. That would be very bad. And it should be pointed out that there are literally people, the Malthusians, who think that the world would be a better place if there weren't people in it. This is a very dangerous line of thinking. It came from Thomas Malthus. It has never been true. It has always been incorrect. More humans has always resulted in more abundance and less scarcity. It's not more humans creates more scarcity. That's not how things work. But there are people that believe this. And if they're in charge of AI development, they could intentionally destroy us all and think that they were doing the world a favor. This would be very bad. So as we grow and improve our civilization, we create new and better ways of providing ourselves with resources. AI, to me, seems like the much needed and logical next step to improve the way that we interact with our planet. So, right now, for the next episodes, I will be talking about AI in the form of a story. Imagine if there were certain things that are hard to grasp about AI development, but put into the context of, say, Lord of the Rings or Star Wars or Star Trek. or any other well known story with some of the factors and characters and discoveries, and not all nerdy stories, some fun ones too, some comedies. The things in these stories turn into an analogy about AI that helps us grasp what's going on. How much easier would it be to understand what's happening? Well, that's how I already see the world. I see the world through the lens of amazing human stories, and I will be bringing that to you in the next episode. So, subscribe to All with AI, and I can't wait to tell you more. Thank you for listening to this first episode, and please go to allwithai.com and subscribe to the newsletter on there. I will email you whenever there's a new episode, as well as other thoughts as well, exclusive to the newsletter. It will be weekly, and be sure to subscribe to this podcast on the outlet of your choice. And this is your end of episode reminder to do at least 2 pro human actions today. And the first of those can be sharing this episode with a friend. And look at that, you're already half done with your homework. Thank you for listening. I really do love you all. Let's create the world that is beneficial to humans.